Sponsor an orphan, and you'll help support a vulnerable child to have the education they've always dreamed of, so they can build a brighter future. You'll be feeding a hungry stomach and a hungry mind with knowledge that will last them a lifetime. That's the power of an education. Sponsor an orphan now with Islamic Relief.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. This is your brother, Muslim Comedy OG, Preacher Moss. I'm here to tell you that the Muslim Comedy Tour, the Super Muslim Comedy Tour, is sponsored by Penny Appeal. This thing is going to be the joint. You're talking about Preacher Moss. We're talking about epic artists. You're talking about the ShOUT Show, reporting live from the road. I'm the host of the ShOUT Show, by the way. Listen, this is going to be amazing. We're all doing it for an incredible cause. Right now, the people of Pakistan need you. You've been seeing it in the radio and the press. They're dealing with floods, massive floods that displace plenty of people. Listen, come out. Now, I know we got a lot of artists on here. I love them all. I'm going to tell you something. You've been rocking with me, Preacher Moss, the OG Muslim Comedy, since 2004. This is 18 years been doing this thing. We have a relationship. So come out and laugh. Come out, let's do Allah's work. Let's come out and support these brothers and sisters that need our help. Make sure you get your tickets. The streets are talking, and they're talking about you coming to the show. I'm Preacher Moss. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Super Muslim Comedy Show. I think I did that right. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. It's your brother, Preacher Moss, the host of the SOS, the ShOUT Show. Hope that you are revved up for a great weekend. We are at the end of our Thursday here on the East Coast, 6 o'clock on the East Coast, 5 o'clock Central, and of course, 3 o'clock on the West Coast. Listen, we are blessed to be here on the show. Sister Satana will not be able to join us today. She is doing a project I wish I was there to be a part of. They're doing a long expanded tour about African-American presence, African-American Muslim presence in the United States. They have some of the leading imams, some of the leading Islamic scholars are going to be there. I am extremely excited for them, praying and wishing them the most success. Shout out to my we call her my third mom, Sister Pitch Muhammad. She's out there, Sister Satana is out there trying to make sure that the moving and grooving is correct. I am so proud of this whole thing. I mean, if I didn't have things to do down here, I would be on a plane. In fact, I actually thought about being on a plane, just getting out there to see how everybody was doing. So let me get to this part, brothers and sisters. Let me get to this part. Today's show, I called it Check Up from the Neck Up, Valuing Mental Health. I'm going to say some things on the show that you may not have heard before in regards to my own mental health. I have been blessed to have an amazing support group. It does not make devoid the fact that we all deal with pressures. We all deal with situations, scenarios that sometimes can be burdensome. Sometimes they can be overwhelming. We're only human. We're not gods. And when I say that, what it means is even in the spiritual realm, in the religious realm, you still have to understand that being able to talk to people who have professional experience, dealing with mental health issues, dealing with depression, anxiety, all these things, that these people are valuable. But the number one person that's valuable in your mental health is you. I'm going to say I was not a big believer in mental health for quite a long time. I'll be honest, I'm 55 years old. When I was growing up, you didn't hear about Black folks going to see psychologists. You heard about Black folks going crazy, but you didn't hear about mental health therapists being positioned to help us. In fact, when somebody would go off the plantation, as we lose their damn mind, we might see them 6 or 7 months later, a year later. And what was interesting is when you see that person, you knew they weren't right. Well, I'm here to say that progressions in the space of mental health and psychology and sociology have been so advanced that they're able to really, really help people. I didn't know how bad this situation was because I was a first-year teacher dealing with children who were scarred and dealing with mental health issues, anxiety, depression, coming from generations that had been dealing with an immeasurable amount of stress, an immeasurable amount of I just want to say constantly trying to figure out who they were. Now, We're going to talk about that here on the Shout Out Show. So I want everybody to just be open minded. You know, I start from the platform or a peaceful place knowing that I'm not perfect. So sometimes I think that things that I say or execute on that they make sense. Sometimes they only make sense to me. Sometimes we have to engage the outer world to say, hey, am I balanced? Hey, am I making sense? And one of the beautiful parts of that is your family. And again, having access, being able to go talk to people away from the nature of shaming that we used to be, or the tagging or the stigmatization that people were stigmatized back in the day talking about mental health. Well, we need to move past that. And I'm saying this because as much as we talk about mental health now, there's a large population of people saying, I'm good. I'm okay. Ain't nothing wrong with me. Something wrong with you if you think something wrong with me. This is not good mental health, brothers and sisters. This is, in some regards, denial. This is in some regards, ignorance. And then, in a larger scale, some of it is fear. Fear. We've talked about fear here on the Shadow Show numerous times. The fact that people's hearts sometimes are connected to the wrong things, and they're good-hearted people, but they're connected and engaging in the wrong thing, and it causes damage. You don't think coming through COVID, you don't think coming through the Great Recession magnet that people didn't go through having their hearts pulled, the heartstrings pulled and sometimes pulled out, that people who lost their livelihood, people who lost belief in the system, there are people who lost belief in their religion. That somehow, some way, that this idea about checking from the neck up, valuing mental health does not have a place. Of course, it has a place. And we're going to talk about it here on the Shadow Show. Thank you guys for joining. We'll be right back. And we're back. Welcome back, family. I want to give a shout out to everybody who's in the comment section. Our Shout Out Show family, our Shout Out Show soldiers. Thank you so much for joining us on what I think is a really, really important topic. I can't say it's everybody else's, but I have reasons to look at this topic. I have reasons to champion mental health, even though I have not been a great advocate in terms of engaging mental health for a number of years. Like I said, I'm a child of the 60s. The child of the 60s, we didn't go to the psychologist or the cuckoo doctor. That's what we used to call them, the shrink and things like that. We had all these names for mental health. The witch doctor, the voodoo doctor. We used to talk about not going to these people. Take it to the Lord. That's what we used to say. Take it to the Lord. And there's nothing wrong with the Lord, but the Lord also created opportunities for us to help ourselves, opportunities for us to engage positive things, to build up our belief, to build up our mental wellness and things like that. And we have to talk about that today. And I'm going to tell you what the impetus is as soon as we get through our spot. First up in the queue, we got Sister Reed. What's going on, Sister Reed? Appreciate you. Hopefully, inshallah, I'm going to see you on Tuesday when I get back. I hope you're doing well, that you're blessed. Peace and blessings to you, Derek, Brother Jawan. I appreciate and love all of you guys. Thank you so much. And let me say, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to you. I want you all to have the best wishes. That's the best language of the Muslim in the greeting. I want you to have that. All right? Thank you so much. Next up, we got my big brother, Bilal Salahuddin, talking about, he's giving the SOS family salams. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to you, brother Bilal, man. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for checking in. And bow down. Can't forget the queen, Sister Sonia. Give her a big hug from us. Yes, and also give her my full salams if she's not in the room. Thank you so much. Next up, we got, of course, Brother Altaf Rashid, affectionately known as Mr. 6 o'clock, straight up, straight down. He's always in the queue, right on time. And like I said, he's our Canadian envoy to the show. This is one of our day ones. We ride with day ones here on the Shout Out Show. In day twos and day threes, listen, when you do over 600 episodes, I'm going to tell you something. You got people that are dedicated. I just don't mean the people that do the show. There's no show without you guys. There's no inspiration without you guys. Remember that. Okay, thank you so much. Good to see you in the house, dear brother. And again, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And you take that slam and spread it all throughout the GTA. All right. We got Sister Sakina Mujahid who's doing well. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shout out to you and your kings down in South Carolina now, not in Charlotte anymore. You're in South Carolina. Shout out to you and your team. Hope that you're doing well and you're blessed. And all good fortunes come to you and your family. It's a blessing to your mom and dad and the rest of your family. Give them my salams. Assalamu alaikum. We got Sister Ika checking in all the way from Melbourne, way down under. Hope that you're doing well and your family is blessed. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for tuning in. And my other partner in crime from Canada, my main man, Adam Khan, who was promoted, brothers and sisters, to be the Canadian ambassador to the Shout Out Show. So the Canadian ambassador and the Canadian envoy, you guys can work together. That's what I mean. Work together to make sure that the quality of the show is good on this side of the border and the other side of the border. Adam, you know you're a long-term friend, so I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for tuning in. To my beloved little brother, Johnny L. Thomas, better known as JT. You talk about a day one going all the way back to the 19, hear me now, the early 1990s or the late 1880s, however you want to shake it up. This brother's been in my corner for quite a long time. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi. Beloved, thank you so much for tuning to the show. And Sister Reed is sending out blessings to everybody, like a brand new potpourri. Blessings to everybody. All right. So as the man is saying, let's get to business. A good friend of mine, his name is Benjamin Hawk. We call him Ben Hawk. Older brother at the mosque, Master Muhammad. Been knowing Ben for a long time. Ben called me up today, and he was really, really excited because he got to go to the White House. He was supposed to be giving Imam Talib Sharif a ride there, but he wound up getting an invitation. He wound up being in the room, and he was so enthused about being in the room with all these policymakers and all these religious officials. And they were talking about security for these religious institutions. And they got to a point where they started throwing out statistics. And they were talking about the welfare of the religious community, the mental wellness of the religious community. And Ben called me today and he was shocked because the thing that threw him into this realm of reality was the fact that when they started talking about the amount of suicides that are happening amongst the teens, the Muslim community, according to government reports, take it or leave it, the Muslim community, according to government reports, has the highest level of teen suicides. Let me say it again, the highest level of teen suicides. Now, if you've been watching the show, I've made this an earmarker of the show. I've talked about suicide. I've talked about mental wellness. We have put video up of people talking about not just teenagers, preteens who are succumbing to feelings of depression, anxiety. You got issues of bullying where these kids are taking their lives. Like, this is the only opportunity that's going to give me some type of lasting or resolving type of peace. And I was like, yo, why are we not talking about mental health? When I was in high school, way back then, the counselor was more like the career counselor. We didn't necessarily have mental health people in the school. You had a nurse, you didn't have a social worker. You didn't have a person that could really look and see whether a person needed problems. A person had problems. The only way you would get that kind of treatment, brothers and sisters, is if you were in my brand of education, which was special ed. I taught severely most disturbed kids. So every kid had what's called an M team. So the M team consisted of the parent, a mental health professional, psychologist, psychologist, something like that. They had a social worker. They had a cadre of mental health workers, along with the educational support, which I would be doing, talking about where the child was in the education development, what was needed, services. But that was off to the school. And the reason those kids had to have it was because they were stigmatized when they came to school. This is what I believe. They were stigmatized. So outside of the fact that they had these deficiencies, learning disabilities, emotional disabilities, they had to still deal with the regular education population around them, and that was a lot of pressure. But now, and the technical dig this, the technical name for, or the technical term for being in my business, severely emotionally disturbed in special ed, was that the child's behavior was so extreme that they couldn't function in a regular education setting. See, their behavior was so extreme they couldn't handle themselves. They couldn't be in a regular education setting. Therefore, they had to have less students, less stimulation, things like that. Hear what I'm saying? Less students, less stimulation. Now you have a system where the environment is so extreme that even the most balanced of us has problems and difficulties. We're talking about children, but we're talking about children going to grow up to be adults. We're talking about people in my age group who didn't benefit from mental health in many regards, unless you were totally off the farm in terms of your behavior and things like that. If you were just totally non-functional, a lot of times you get sent away. But now we deal with an environment that is extremely volatile, an environment that is extremely radical, an environment that's also overstimulated. I said with special ed that they can make sure that these kids weren't stimulated. Look at where we are now. We have overstimulation. We have so many things that are going around and floating around that we can't possibly, possibly. And if you try to block it out, that's almost another curse or another way of dealing with it, but maybe not the most healthy way dealing in terms of your own mental health. Flashpoint. And this is really, really important. Flashpoint. Coming out of COVID, many of us went through some very difficult times in terms of your personality, in terms of always being on guard over your health. We watched people die from what we could not see. That was mentally taxing, spiritually taxing. We went through this and we didn't know. I don't care what anybody says. We didn't necessarily know where we were going to wind up on the other side if we got to the other side. We were talking about a global pandemic that was picking people off. If you look at the numbers, over a million people alone here in the United States are not here any longer. And those million people were amongst us. And you look to the right, you look to the left. I don't know if he has COVID. I don't know if he has COVID. We didn't know. It was an invisible killer. And it framed our behavior. It framed so many things in terms of our belief system. It framed how we felt about our government. It framed how we felt about our neighbors. This was a situation, scenario whereby everybody had to go for themselves in a very closed space. I know in my family, my mother and my aunt did not see each other physically for at least 7 months. Their birthdays when they got together for almost 7 months. These are people who see each other all the time. Talk to them. In fact, one of the best shout out shows we ever had was a Mother's Day show where they actually got to see each other for the first time in about 5 months. Let me take a comment. Zakina says, Alhamdulillah for this topic. Here's a good source to see these stats or get information. It's Maristan.org. Dr. Rania Awad has a presentation to Muslim leaders about the suicide rate. That is Maristan.org. Maristan.org. Unfortunately, Sister Satan is here to put it up on the block, but I'm going to leave it up. That is Maristan.org. So I just want folks to know that this is not coming out of thin air. We've been talking about this for a moment. And I just want to re-emphasize the point that even now, and I say this all the time, we're in an extremely volatile time. In fact, when Barack Obama got elected, and I saw the nature of people, particularly non-Blacks, non-Latinos, non-Asians, you know what I'm talking about, I watched a physical turning of their faces and their hearts. There are people who apostatized from religion when Barack Obama got reelected because they realized this man's election was not a fluke. We got 8 years of this Negro. And it absolutely destroyed what they've been taught. many years. Inferiority complex of the Negro. Nope, you got Negroes who are voting, Latinos who are voting, finding their place in the world, buffering and enjoying their existence in the world. It was a beautiful time back then. But there are people who suffer. Let me tell you something. Insurrections don't happen with people who are happy. You have a president, former president, who's still trying to be president, who is so insipid that he has understood where he can poke the bear on the weaker folks and make them think like him. That his mental illness now becomes their mental illness. And the sad part is they are fearful to challenge his own way of thinking. So they take his way of thinking. This is where we are today. And you talk about young folks who feel they have these long feelings, these deep feelings of hopelessness and things like that because things aren't moving. We have to pay attention to this stuff. Our children are not going to tell us a lot of things because there's some aspects of social media that tell children that your parents are clowns, that they don't understand you. Social media goes, I understand you. Your parents are stupid. Your daddy is dumb. Your mom ain't there. And your sister over here ain't too smart. Talk to me. And they're talking to algorithms. They're talking to pictures that don't talk back. They're talking to pictures that say, fill in the blank. I look rich. How do you feel about looking at me feeling? We don't know if these people are rich or not. But here we are in a state and in a place and time, brothers and sisters, where machines, hear me now, machines cause depression. Algorithms cause depression. Gaming causes depression. I talked to a young man who was very, very upset with his game, his football game, to the point he was hysterical. He asked me, you know how I feel? I don't know how you feel. I actually played football for real. He said, what? Yes, yes. Exercise. Things like that. Getting out, finding nature, and finding people where they are, not where they're pretending to be, is a lot. So listen, we're going to be right back. We're going to finish this topic up. Don't move anybody. Like I said, we got a lot to talk about. Be right back. Hey, babies. Welcome to Radio WCUC, Convenient Urgent Care, home of the smart patient. This is DJ What It Do. You know what time it is. It's the top of the hour, and the request lines are open. You know what you want to hear? I know what you want to hear. Operators are waiting.
I just gotta hear Don't Get the COVID.
Don't get the COVID. Put your mask back on. The Delta COVID, more contagious than before. Don't get the COVID. Go on and get the vaccine. You know that it can keep you safe, and your people living up in your space. Don't get the COVID. You need to wash your hands. The Delta COVID is more deadly than before. Don't get the COVID. Go on and get your vaccine. You know that it can keep you from dying. Don't leave your family all alone and crying. Don't get the COVID.
We invite you to join our fight against COVID and against misinformation. It's time to listen to the doctors and trust the science.
When I think of people dying that don't have to die, it makes me sad. Now's the time to be sober. Together we can make this thing over. Let's fight the COVID. Convenient urgent care, home of the smart patient.
Hey, everybody, this is your brother, Preacher Moss. Listen, I hope that you enjoyed your shout-out show. All right, I did that out of order. I'm sorry, Sultana is here. Don't kill me. But I'm talking about this whole idea about why we stigmatize, why we shame folks who need mental health attention. Sometimes it's not even mental health, it's just mental awareness. Sometimes it's being able to have the courage and the freedom. And I want to say the relationship to tell people I'm feeling a certain way. Nobody is immune. Let me tell you about comedy here for all of those people that think comedy is thing you just wake up and you laugh. Comedy is a very lonely business. It's an extremely lonely business, and it has a high infection rate that deals specifically with rejection. That more comics quit than more comics succeed. That you have to have a disposition to accept failure and expect failure, even when you're good. Even when you're phenomenal, failure is always around the corner. It is the other part of the conversation that we never want to have. When we talk about all these things that we're doing, these projects, da da da, we don't talk about failure being around the corner and the accompanying cousin, which is rejection. Do you know how many clubs told Preacher Moss he can't come here? Do you know how many gigs were turned down because Preacher Moss was going to be there? Do you know how much money I lost and the opportunities I lost and wasn't able to take advantage of? Sometimes because I wasn't the right look, sometimes because I wasn't the right color, and sometimes because I wasn't the right religion. And you build upon these and you become stronger. But it doesn't matter how strong you are, you're never going to forget those feelings of rejection, of wanting to be a part of something and you're not a part of something and you can't control it. Even now, I was talking to a very, very good friend of mine. He called on me to check on me and he asked me something and it was so out of the blue, but it was so on time. He said, "Hey man, I called to check on you." And he checks on me other times. He said, "I called to check on you to see how you were dealing with the loss of Reggie. Reggie's my big brother. Been my big brother." And I say, when I say I've been with somebody for 30 some years, we never had an argument. And that brother loved me and he had me in his best interest. And I had him in my best interest. And I carried water on his janazah. He asked me to make sure that he was buried properly as a Muslim. And I left and I did everything that he asked. I worked with his friend. I did everything he asked. And he said, "Well, what's the problem?" I said, "I don't know." He said, "Have you properly grieved the loss of your brother?" He said, "You did all of these other things and you went back to life." He said, "Have you actually properly grieved the loss of your brother?" And the answer was no. I had not properly grieved the memory of my brother and the loss. I still have recurring dreams, sometimes nightmares, of being the person that has to take the shovel and put dirt on his grave. I say that these things haunt, but he said, "Hey man, if it ever gets to be too much," he said, "call me and let's have somebody talk about these feelings." Just him doing a mental wellness check for me allows me to talk about it today. But he was 100% right. I had pushed it. I still have my last, literally, I have my last voicemail from him, the last text from him. And even then, I know, that there's an adjustment period. And I feel like I'm okay now. And many of us feel like we're okay now, but hey, there's a certain time where maybe we're not okay. And we need to be aware and comfortable about when we're not okay. When you pick up the phone and that person's not on the other line, that's something. Children who deal with divorce, that's something. Divorce itself, that's something. Long time illness, that's something. That a mental shift has to happen so that the illness in my body becomes something that I am routinely used to. That this situation, as bad as I feel right now, it may not get better for the next 10, 15 years. It does something to you, it does something to the soul. So I'm saying, you know what? Let's not deny ourselves. Let's not be foolish. Let's be open-hearted. Let's have a community that talks about these things. We have children that are dying. They're dying for the wrong reason. They're talking to the wrong people. They're talking to gadgets and apps and things like that. They're talking to algorithms and artificial intelligence. And they take artificial intelligence over their own God-given intelligence. And it's become a mess. So my encouragement and my prayer is that, hey, you know what? We all, at a certain point in time, whether we're having issues with our mental health, if we do a checkup from the neck up and have the strength to go to our loved ones, people in our community. If we feel that they're feeling a certain way or they're not operating a certain way and you see they need help, talk to them about a checkup from the neck up. Only human, brothers and sisters. So that's my soapbox. You guys been great. I appreciate you. Here's an old time classic from the Shout Out Show. Inshallah, I'll see you tomorrow. Shout out to WD community in Chicago doing that big conference. Shout out to Sister Fitra. Shout out to Sister Satana. We'll see you guys one day. Hey everybody, this is your brother Preacher Moss. Listen, I hope that you enjoyed your Shout Out Show experience. We'll be back with the next show, the next Shout Out Show. A simple ask before you go, please help your brother out. Click that subscribe button, click that notify button, and I'll see you again on this side of the microphone. You probably wonder what that smell is. That's me. I smell good. And the reason I smell good is because I use oils from Tarif Altar. So I'm not saying you can't smell good. I'm not even saying you stink. I'm saying you have the opportunity to smell exquisite. Check out TarifAltar.com for some of the best oils and scents in town.